Would you be able to elaborate for me why you think the UK's position is currently 18th for gender equality? Do you have an opinion as to why the UK's position has dropped drastically over the past 10 years? And finally, why do you think people in the UK are so reluctant to talk to students about gender equality?
One of the first things that I found in this investigation was the majority of people here in the UK don't have any time to speak about gender equality.
I'm a third year student about to graduate from the University of South Wales. In October 2015, I read an interesting article from the World Economic Forum which ranked 150 countries in gender equality. Iceland was ranked in at first, and the bit that really surprised me was the UK followed at 18th position, which got me thinking, what really are the differences between these two countries, specifically in education and finding a job?
The first organisation who responded to me here in the UK was the University of South Wales, who invited me to an event they were holding at the Treforest campus to promote gender equality in academia.
I have spent time working within the news and Welsh language programmes. Within these departments, it is clear that we now employ almost equal numbers of men and women. There is still a need to recruit women into the very top positions. It's incredibly disappointing that in 2016 there are only 2 women out of 9 on the board of directors, and within the senior management team made up of 10 people, only 1 of these is a woman. This is, however, something which ITV are quite open about, and there are several initiatives currently being launched to tackle the problem of what appears to be the glass ceiling where women are concerned. There are 11 heads of news and 1 managing editor across the UK. At present, 8 out of those 12 posts are held by women. Also in the last few weeks, ITV Cymru Wales has recruited a trainee camera operator. We had 424 applications, and I'm delighted to say the successful candidate is a female. So, things are, I think, on the up. And I hope it's given you some confidence that the media as a whole is trying to address the issue of underrepresentation of women. And I think, on behalf of ITV Cymru Wales, I can stand here today and give you our pledge for parity.
I later spoke to Kate Lewis, a guest speaker at the conference, and Dr. Louise Bright, chairman of the Gender Equality Subgroup based in the university.
My initial thought would probably be that it's to do with education. I think I started my presentation here today talking about children's programmes and how we gender stereotype from a very young age. We categorise girls into the comfy, nice environment and boys into action heroes and things. And I wonder if that's probably where this all begins.
The Leadership Foundation for Higher Education is a body that is a UK-wide body, and it looks after the development needs of academics and all staff within universities. And my role is to make sure that Welsh institutions are catered for. One of the things that we've done recently is develop a women-only development programme called Aurora. And there's been last year, I think there were over 700 women that had been through the Aurora programme, because that's really recognising a lot of the research that's coming out that says that women need confidence. They're entirely able to do what male colleagues do in academia, but lack, I think, the confidence to take their careers further. So throughout the UK, about 44% of all academics are female, but when you move up to professor, so kind of the highest ranked academic, by the time you get there in Wales, only about 16% of academics are female.
There's a higher statistic of female graduates at university compared to males.
Yeah.
So, but then you also look at the statistics and there are more males that are in a higher paid jobs throughout Wales and the UK. So it kind of makes you think, where do all the females go?
Yeah. it's really interesting actually, what you've just expressed about the people that you see. So if we talk about academics, there's a real drop-off. So it's gone from 44% to 16% by the time we get to professors. If you talk about senior management, so the kind of roles that are supporting academics, in Wales, 30% of senior management within universities are female. So something is happening that's making it easier for women to rise through the ranks in professional support services than it is in academia. I think it's easier for female students to engage because, like you say, the publicity is all around gender equality and women.
Female perspective.
Yeah, but actually a lot of the things that we do to try and make things better, if we can do it right, they'll make things better for everybody, not just for women.
I met up with Harold, a student from the University of Iceland, to discuss her experiences of gender equality in her home country.
I worked in the States when I was 20, and I worked in Spain when I was 19. So I see the difference between being in a very, very big, dense city and then being in Reykjavik, because we don't get catcalled the way, I've lived in Iceland 22 years, and I've gotten catcalled 2 times, but then I went to the States and I got catcalled in 3 months 20 times. So there's a huge difference between that. But I think that, and I was discussing this with my friend the other day, I think it has to do with also Iceland is so small and there are so few people that there isn't anybody on the street to catcall. I think there are a lot more females at the university than there are males, to be honest. And I study anthropology and I studied Indian studies, and majority of my courses are combined, right? They're just women, basically. And I haven't formed this, I don't feel like I've been held back because of the fact that I'm a woman. I don't think so. Not when it comes to university. The university, yeah. But I'm also, I'm white, I'm cisgendered, and really privileged in every way possible. But I'm a woman. But that's the only thing that holds me back. I'm not foreign, I'm not an immigrant, I'm not trans, so there's a lot of factors that make me a lot more privileged than other people. So I think that's very important to remove that and to realize that there are a lot of other ways that I can be oppressed, but I'm not. So I have a lot of privilege. And that might be one of the reasons that I find it so easy to, study at the university.
After an interesting talk with Harold, she invited me on a history walk around downtown Reykjavik that the National Queer Association organised.
There used to be 50,000 males in Iceland. I think and the total population was 120,000. So in World War II, it's 1948. It's crazy here since then. Now the population has doubled or tripled, but it's still very, very good.
After exploring Iceland, I sat down with Katla, a member of the Pirate Party, which is one of Iceland's fastest growing political parties.
I think a lot of people have very different views of the role of feminism in the 21st century. And for me, it's all about the education. I would rather not focus on the law making, because the law doesn't really make all the difference in the society. I would rather want to focus on educating young children and young adults more about the behavior and why we behave as we behave, and what is it that's teaching us to go in different directions, and just be aware of the things, of the choices you make. Why are you making these choices?
And also, you mentioned you've seen a change in younger people.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of the rise of the left with Bernie Sanders in the US and Jeremy Corbyn in the UK?
I think no, because I find it so interesting how with the Bernie versus Hillary is working out. Like, and there are women, like these icons that we've grown up to look up to and love, like Gloria Steinem, saying that young girls will only vote Bernie because they want to be cool for the guys or something like that. And that's just so insulting. That's Gloria Steinem taking like all critical thinking and free will of young women away from them and saying that they're just behaving the way they are behaving because of boys. Like, seriously, give them a bit more credit than that. The fact is, Bernie Sanders is more radical than Hillary is. Taking Hillary's stand all the time is the way that feminists of certain generation will think. It's the second wave generation feminists that broke so many glass windows for us or ceilings and did so many great things for us, like Gloria Steinem. Absolutely amazing. But I think I think that young women and men today are not going to go for a woman just for the fact that she's a woman. They will go for a woman for the fact she's a fucking radical woman.
Calling all the walls around. So it's taken us a while and we've walked across half the city, but wow. I knew my place and it wasn't next to you. Bury them down and so get through.
My name is Margrét Steinarsdóttir and I'm the director for the Icelandic Human Rights Center.
Why would you say Iceland is number one?
Well, I think it's mostly to do with the strong women's movement here. And the Icelandic Women's Rights Association was established in 1907. And they actually were extremely diligent in promoting women's rights through various parliamentarians that they knew and so on. And so we had this, I would say, good foundation to build on. And then in the 70s we had the Red Stockings movement, and a little bit later the Women's Feminist Society was established. And then of course the Women's List in 1980, around 1980, they were elected to Parliament. We basically started working together for common goals, because even with various political opinions and so on, we still all had the same, of course, goal to obtain gender equality.
So, but how is Iceland combating inequality for the LGBT plus community?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's also a very interesting question. To start with, we do not have any legislation on discrimination. We do have our constitution. Article 65 prohibits discrimination on grounds of, for example, disability. They don't actually mention sexual orientation or sexual identity, but still they say, or your status, or others' status, or so you actually, you would actually be able to apply this constitutional stipulation for LGBTI people, but still we do have this article in the penal code if you refuse services to people on grounds of their, for example, sexual orientation. And we also, if you attack someone on grounds of their race, origin, or sexual orientation, or something like that, then that is punishable. But otherwise, we don't have any legislation on discrimination. That the situation is actually not that bad, but at the same time, there is much that needs to be done.
So it's been a long week here in Iceland, and I think I can safely say I'm knackered. I wasn't expecting to find out what we have here, but it's an amazing country, and you can see why it's #1 for gender equality. Although there is still a lot that needs to be done here. But speaking to the people that I have, you can understand why it's very progressive. They're all very motivated. So it's been an experience, and I can't wait to come back.
After I arrived back in the UK, I was also able to set up a meeting with the Chief Executive from Diverse Cymru.
There is a very, very specific agenda in the devolved context in Wales that needs to be considered. It's important to remember Wales was, for a brief period, the only ever seat of government that's had a 50-50 gender split, so the Assembly was the only place ever to achieve that. It's unfortunate we've kind of fallen backwards a little bit from that. We have some key academics leading on gender mainstreaming and gender equality at an international level. And interestingly, from a gender equality pay gap kind of perspective, some of the work that Alison Parkin's done on WAVE, Women Added Value to the Economy, that project, again, Welsh specific. There's just a lot of activity that's been kind of generated by a devolved approach to equality. The fact that we've got separate devolved legislation against violence against women. Lots of people would argue that the fact we've had so many women involved in a new governance arrangement in the devolved context has influenced some of the policy areas that we focused on.
Interesting journey, and going to Iceland really put into perspective for me the cultural differences between these two countries. The people of Iceland have been so helpful, which is really great, but it makes me more disheartened the fact that the majority of people that I contacted in the UK didn't even get back to me, which I think reflects on the UK's position. Iceland is so progressive and they've done so much, but it was clear to me that there's still a lot more work that they need to do, which I think a lot of other countries can learn from as well. And I don't feel like my gender has affected me throughout this documentary, and I don't think it will affect me as much as I first thought when I looked at the statistics in finding a job. I think it comes down to your personality more at the end of the day, and there is still a lot of work that needs to be done, but personally, I'm not so worried about being a female.